What is an Atmos clock, and why are they special? The Atmos clock is one of the closest inventions to pure perpetual motion. The power is created by the elements of the room. A 1-degree temperature variation will cause enough expansion and contraction inside of the bellow unit to provide the clock with 2 days running time. The bellows contain a combination of liquid and gas. This gas is sensitive to slight changes in temperature. The reliability that temperature will change is perpetual, and the balance wheel, also referred to as the pendulum, will continue to rotate on the mantle for decades without any winding necessary. The Swiss created what is the Mercedes-Benz of mantle clocks. Jean-Léon Reuter, in 1928, was granted a patent for an invention that harnessed a form of sustainable energy and made an artistic, scientific, and practical piece of home decor. The mechanical system displays an ability to precisely regulate the release of power through the gear train, called the escapement on a timepiece, and thus the end result is the display of the time. Like wind or solar power collected and stored into a battery bank, the action created by the bellows, the movement from the expansion and contraction of the bellows, is collected in the mainspring of the clock. This mainspring maintains a wind and releases a low amount of power through an escapement that gives a mere assist to the twisting and untwisting, referred to as oscillation, of the suspension wire. The suspension wire is contained inside the balance tube and is unseen. A slight amount of the suspension wire can be viewed from the top of the Atmos clock, where it is protruding from the regulating cannon. This protruding wire at the top of the clock, that extra piece of wire protruding from the top, was used by the watchmaker to hang the balance wheel. With a pliers or hand tool, that extra wire was held as the balance wheel was then locked into place with a pin and screw. The wire twists, and an impulse roller at the top of the balance wheel enters a pallet fork that triggers the release of a tooth on the escape wheel of the clock movement. As the mainspring loses its wind, a counterspring, referred to as a coil spring, on the back of the clock within the motor. The motor is what holds the bellow unit. It's the drum-shaped round object on the back of the clock. And as this mainspring loses its wind, a counterspring, coil, and ratchet system make contact with the bellow drum that is in constant contraction and expansion, which pumps this coil spring and chain and pulley system wrapped around the winding arbor, which rewinds the mainspring. This winding action will never visibly be seen. It is not an active winding system that is visibly active in winding. The wind takes place one tooth at a time, or one chain length at a time. And this wind is simply maintaining the wind on the mainspring. It is not fully winding the mainspring from nothing, and it is not going to start a clock that has no wind at it at all. It is maintaining the perfect amount of torque on the gear train via the mainspring by adding the necessary small incremental amount of wind each time the coil spring makes contact with the bellow unit in the back of the clock. This contact is made as the mainspring weakens. Why have an Atmos clock? Well, why have a Rolex? Sometimes we appreciate the top of the line, and the Curt Atmos clock is firmly in that category for mantle clocks. The reasons are the above mentioning of their genius design and the elegance of their eye-capturing presence and the value of all the memories of a loved one's dedication of career. Many companies and businesses used the Atmos clocks as a service appreciation gift for long-time dedicated employees. Ironically, these qualities also make the Atmos clock a timeless artifact. Being a vintage item, an antique item, because of the technology used to power the clock, it is way ahead of its time even today, and so being an antique gift from the 1950s is ironically timeless on a timekeeping instrument. The clocks are quite durable and will pass through a family's generations with minimal service requirements. Like most mechanical instruments, clocks especially, the clock will require an overhaul from time to time. But it is not uncommon for them to run for decades before requiring service. It is okay to completely run out the Atmos clock, meaning allow it to run until it stops. Compared to other forms of clocks, such as grandfather clocks, which are weight driven and have much more torque on the gears, it is important that those clocks maintain a regular oil servicing period, because the dust that it collects within the movement plates forms an abrasive, and with all the torque that those movements have, eventually the pivots will wear an oblong shape into the movement plate and require rebushing. Contrarily, the Atmos clock requires no oiling and should never externally be oiled, and it is perfectly fine to run the Atmos clock until it stops. The Atmos clock uses such low power or torque on its gear train that there is no bushings. The jewels are the pivot point for the gears. The jewels will not crack or break due to an immense amount of torque. They can crack or break for other reasons, but it will not be because you allowed the clock to run without service. The Curt Atmos clock is the official gift of the Swiss Confederation, a prestigious group of nation-states consigned to armed neutrality. Many historical and political leaders have had an Atmos clock displayed in their bookshelves and desks. The most common calibers of Atmos clocks are the caliber 519, the caliber 522, the calibers 532, caliber 526, 528, and 540. The Atmos that you're looking at here is the Atmos 540 Elise Classique. The Elise model is noted by the round dimples in the balance wheel, and also it contains a 24 karat gold case. This particular Atmos clock that you are looking at is also available for sale on our website at www.curtsclocks.com. Please look there for more photos and information about the clock, as well as the asking price. In the height of the market, this is a $3,000 clock. We are willing to allow it to go for $19.99, $1,000 discount on a very, very valuable and precious artifact. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and visit our website at www.curtsclocks.com for more information. This clock also comes with a new Curt Atmos shipping box, and it has a 1-year service guarantee included with it, and as you can see, it's running perfectly here in front of you today, and the case finish is brilliant, shining, and exquisite. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you understand the importance of the Atmos clock by Curt.